Okay, we're recording. Hello, I'm Richard Thomas, and we're having a study at a camp meeting right now, and we're sharing with a couple of sisters on the 2520, what it is, and some aspects of it. There's been a lot of controversy over the subject, and I'm sure many are familiar with the first part that we're going to go through, but after that, there's probably information that many people have never even heard of. And it's the 2520 is a golden thread that is threaded through the entire scriptures from Genesis to Revelation. If you are able to see it, it's as clear as day, and the more you study, the more you will be able to see it. But so right now we're going to go to the covenant in Leviticus 26. And if you can read for me Leviticus 26, 1 through 4.
Ye shall make no idols, nor graven images, neither rear you up a standing image, neither shall ye set up any image of stone in your land, to bow down unto it, for I am the Lord your God. Ye shall keep your Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. I am the Lord. If ye walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and do them, then I will give you rain in due season, and the land shall yield her increase, and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit.
Are you on the chapter? I want to go to the what verse is it with that I'll be your God and you my people?
40 through 45.
No. Up in 1 through 14, 1 through 13. It's like 12 or 11 or...
Oh, 12.
12? Can you read 12 for us, please? Can you read verse 12 for us?
And I will walk among you, and will be your God, and ye shall be my people.
Okay. For time's sake, we're not going to read every single verse, but here God has said that if you don't have any idols and you worship Him and you obey His commandments, that He will give you the lot of rain, He'll give you rain in due season. It also talks about none of the beasts of the field will come into your land. So in a literal sense, you're not going to have coyotes and other animals attacking all your livestock. You're not going to have or be injured even by humans injured by bears and lions and other things like that. But also, when the Bible talks about Bible prophecy and it says, there's a lion with 2 wings, a leopard with 4 heads, these are kingdoms. And it's saying that as you as a people, if the people of God, who make covenant with the Lord and they say that they'll obey God and keep His commandments, that He won't allow the Babylonians to come in and take them over. He won't allow the Greeks to come in and invade the country. But the reason why all that happened is because of the curse of the 2520, which we're going to look at again still right now. So read verse 14. Up 1 through 12, or 1 through 13, is God telling us how He's going to bless us if we keep the commandments and do and obey His. We keep a covenant with Him. But as soon as we break that covenant, then there's obviously consequences, and so verse 14 begins the record of that.
But if ye will hearken not unto me, and will not do all these commandments.
Yeah, keep on, go ahead. Yeah.
And if ye shall despise my statutes, or if your soul abhors my judgment, so that ye will not do all my commandments, but that ye break my covenant.
Here, do you mind if I do the reading?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I think I might have a little bit louder voice. I'm not sure how that's going to pick up. But so I'm going to go ahead and read that again really quick. Just the first part. But if you will, verse 14 begins. But if you will not hearken unto me, and will not do all these commandments, and if you despise my statutes, or if your soul abhor my judgments, so that you will not do all my commandments, but that you shall break my covenant, I will also do this unto you. And then it goes on to say a whole bunch of curses that are going to come upon you. And when we get on the chart here, we have this 1843 chart. Can you hold that, Brenda? On the 1843 chart, we have, go ahead and bring it down. At the top, we have 677, and we'll get into this, what this means in a minute. But when it says the commencement of the 7 times, Leviticus 26, 28 through 34. So there's a whole lot of scriptures here on what God's going to do to punish. But we want to focus in on these verses right here, 28 to 34. So I'm going to go ahead and read 28 to 34. It says, "And then I will walk contrary unto you also in fury. Even I will chastise you 7 times for your sins." And so the 7 times that we're looking at today, real quickly, we'll veer off this for a second. And the 7 times that we're looking at today is what God says He's going to punish us if we break His covenant. Now, we know that when we're doing Bible prophecy, it's a day for a year, and a biblical year is 360 days in it. So 7 times 360 equals 2520. Okay, so that's 7 times to just 7 years. So, so when God just said in verse 28 that I will punish you 7 times, then He's going to punish him for 2,520 years. Now we don't know exactly when that is yet, so let's go ahead and continue to read a little bit here. And so in verse 29, it says, "And ye shall eat the flesh of your sons, and the flesh of your daughters shall ye eat. I will destroy your high places, and cut down your images, and cast your carcasses upon the carcasses of your idols, and my soul shall abhor you. I will make your cities waste, and bring your sanctuaries into desolation. I will not smell the savor of your sweet odors. I will bring the land into desolation, and your enemies which dwell therein shall be astonished at it. And I will scatter you among the heathen, and will draw out a sword after you, and your land shall be desolate, and your cities waste. Then shall the land enjoy her Sabbaths as long as it lieth desolate, and ye be in your enemy's land. Even then shall the land rest and enjoy her Sabbaths." So let's look at what we had here. We had we're going to eat our own children. Can you read off the things that it goes through? Or just go ahead and read it through it again. It's from verse 29.
29.
Or you can go to probably verse 30.
30. And where do you want me to stop?
I'll just keep reading.
Okay. "And I will destroy your high places,
Okay.
and cut down your images, and cast your carcasses upon the carcasses of your idols, and my soul shall abhor you. And I will make your cities waste, and bring your sanctuaries into desolation."
Okay, hold on. Cities waste.
Mm-hmm.
And the sanctuary into desolation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
"And I will not smell the savory of your sweet odors.
Odors.
"And I will bring the land into desolation, and your enemies which dwell therein shall be astonished at it. And I will scatter you among the heathen, and I will draw out a sword after you, and your land shall be desolate, and your cities waste. Then shall the land enjoy her Sabbath as long as it lieth desolate."
Okay, where's sanctuary in there? Where's sanctuary? In verse 28?
31.
31, what does it say? Oh, sanctuary's right here. I'm sorry. No, I had it. Okay, so here's what God says He's going to do. So the only way that God can be telling the truth, or we can have this prophecy fulfilled, is we have to find a time when this happened. And so let's go to I'm not lost. I'm just wondering which direction I want to go to first. So let's do this. In the Bible, it talks about how Solomon had built the temple of God, right? And it was the most glorious temple ever, and it was in the city of Jerusalem. Well, Solomon, when he died, his son was going to take over to be the next king. And because the new child that was going to take over Rehoboam, whatever it is, he says he gets some counsel from the youngsters, and they say, or the elders, and they say you should be more lenient than your father was. Maybe not tax him so much. Maybe you should, Solomon really taxed us a lot for all of his temples and stuff, and we should go easy on the people. And so he listened to that. But then he went to the young people and he got counsel from them, and he says, "Oh no, don't show them your weakness, and be tough." And so what Rehoboam said is, he says, "My father ruled you." Do you remember what it says?
It says, my father chastised you
With whips, but I'm going to chastise you with snakes or something like that, with scorpions.
Yeah.
So he's basically telling them that, you thought it was bad under my dad. Wait till I'm king. Well, 10 of the tribes decided that they weren't going to go for that, and they decided at that time and there that they were going to leave the other 2 tribes. So God ended up having Benjamin and Judah as 2 tribes, and the other 10 tribes, they went their separate ways. And if you read through the book of Kings and the book of Chronicles, where it talks about all the kings, every time it says a king, it'll say, "and the king of Israel," or it'll say the king of Judah, because there's 2 kingdoms now. So now God's got 2 groups of people that are His. Now, so we get around. We go through time. Moses has given us this prophecy a long time ago after we came out of Egypt. But as time goes by, we become more wicked. And as we started, when we first had our first kings, we weren't supposed to have kings. We were supposed to be a theocracy. God was our king. And then we said, we want a king. And then God said, okay, well, if I give you a king, it's not going to be good, because your children are going to die in wars, and they're going to tax you. And it's not going to be the best, because I was your God, but you want a man to be a king, that's fine, but you're going to pay the price. Well, so Solomon was the 3rd king. He was at the very beginning. And now we're going to we're going to jump through all the kings to the last 3. When we get to the last 3, then some prophets start showing up, and God is warning His people, because they've gotten so wicked that there's prostitution, murder, thievery, abuse, and all kinds of stuff going on in Jerusalem. And so God sends Isaiah to Jerusalem and says, look, God said if you don't clean up your ways, that God's going to send the Assyrians and the Babylonians down to take you captive, and He's going to destroy you. And they're going like, well, this is Solomon's temple. God wouldn't do that. And He's going like, well, God just said He was going to do it. So what ends up happening is there's the last 3 kings, Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin, and Zedekiah. Jehoiakim, he wants to defy the messages coming from Isaiah that had come. And then God brings another prophet, Jeremiah. And Jeremiah comes to him and says, look, okay, you didn't listen to Isaiah, and you're still doing what you're doing, so God's going to destroy you. And then, so the king, so when Jeremiah comes to the king is standing there, and he has other prophets with him. They're false prophets that just tell him flattering things. And so Jeremiah says, God has now decided to send the Babylonians down to take over Jerusalem because of the wickedness of your hearts. And they go, nope, That's not going to happen. We made a deal with the Egyptians, and the king of Egypt is going to come up here and fight the Babylonians with us. And Jeremiah right then says, "Nope, that's not what's going to. That's not what is what going to. That is not what is going to happen. The king of Egypt has been sent back. He's going to turn back, and you're going to be stuck with the Babylonians coming down here, and you'll be defenseless." Okay, so they didn't listen to Jeremiah, and they ended up going to Babylon. And when they go into Babylon, before they go, they get besieged by the armies of Babylon. And when the armies of Babylon set their forces around the outskirts of Jerusalem, and they're sitting out here, and nobody can come or go, there's no food that they can get out of the fields, and they're completely surrounded, then it gets to the point where they run out of food. And this is when we have stories about two women agreeing that today we'll eat your baby and tomorrow we'll eat yours. And then they ate the one lady's baby, and the next day the other one's going like, "Nope, you're not eating my baby." But they were eating their children. They actually got to the point where they were eating their children. All their high places were torn down. Now Jerusalem was the great city. Jerusalem was brought down to rubble. Even the walls and the streets and everything was destroyed. So the cities were destroyed. And of course the sanctuary, they came in, they burnt down the sanctuary, they stole all the gold out of the sanctuary. And so the sanctuary was destroyed. And then when they took all the people to Babylon and all the other people that ran or whatever, they were scattered. And from that time on, so they used to rule their own kingdom. They had their own king, right? But now they're ruled by Babylonians. And as we know in prophecy, then they were ruled by the Medo-Persians, and then they were ruled by the Greeks, and they were ruled by the Romans. But they were never brought together by God together to rule as a kingdom again. From that time, back in the Bible days, because they were scattered, and just as they were in Europe, and they were in Poland and Germany and all over Europe, they were scattered abroad amongst the lands of the people of the land. So all of these were fulfilled when Babylon came down. Now let's take a look at the story of Babylon and when they went in. You asked when they went in. You have the number?
Yep.
So now if you can turn to Isaiah chapter 7. No, the eraser.
The eraser.
Yeah.
Oh, napkin.
Yes, please.
Mm-hmm.
So in Isaiah, what we're going to read here, in Isaiah chapter 7, this is the chapter in which God is going to tell us when the 25-20 is going to start. When is God going to allow these kingdoms to come in and destroy? And when are the people going to eat their children? And when is all that going to happen? So that's Isaiah chapter 7. Okay, and if you can read verse 1, please.
And it came to pass in the days of Isaiah, the son of Jotham, the son of Ezra, the king of Judah, and Rezin, the king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, went up towards Jerusalem to war against it, but could not prevail against it.
Okay, hold on a sec. Now I'm going to read that. If you lay that down, I'm going to read it again real quick. Okay, so it says, "And it was told the house of David, saying," okay, no, in the first one, it says, "And it came to pass in the days of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah." In the days of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the son of King of... Okay, so Ahaz is the king of Judah. He's just telling you who his parents were before he became king. Okay, in the days of when Ahaz was the king, it says that Rezin, the king of Syria. So we had the king of Syria.
Which are heathen.
which Syria is like Babylonian area, Assyria, it's all that upper Middle East area. The king of Syria and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel. So Pekah was the king of Israel. Now, so then in verse 2 it says, "And it was told the house of David, saying, Syria is confederate with Ephraim." Well, we just read in verse 1 that these two kings right here were going to come up against Judah. Now, when we look at this, we have Judah and Israel. They're all brothers, aren't they? Isn't their father Jacob?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So these two brothers are going to fight each other. This is a family war. This is a civil war. And God, if there's one thing God doesn't like is war, unless he's like telling you to clean up some heathen nation. But a civil war amongst his own people that are supposed to represent him to the whole world, and they're all fighting each other to the death and to steal and to kill and take the city, that's really extremely, that's like, here's like this. Every one of us has one of these. It's a cup. And you can fill it full of all the iniquities you want. And as you keep on sinning, it gets fuller and fuller and fuller. But when it fills all the way up, then God says, now you got to drink it. So Israel and Judah for many, many years were sinning and sinning and sinning. But when the Israelites tried to destroy their own brother Judah, God said, your cup is full. We're done here. You guys are getting the 25-20 now. And so we'll read that in a second. But in verse 1, it said Syria and Israel, Pekah, the king of Israel, are going against Judah. In verse 2, it says it a little differently. In verse 2, it says the same thing. It says, "And I was told at the house of David, saying, Syria is confederate with Ephraim." Well, we don't have Ephraim on here, but we know Syria is confederate with them. So Israel and Pekah are actually called Ephraim.
All throughout Scripture, when you hear Ephraim and Judah, it's the north and the south. It's Israel in the north, Ephraim in the north.
That's EPH, Ephraim, and so we have Ephraim and Judah, or Israel and Judah. Okay, so it says, and their heart was moved, and the heart of the people as the trees of the woods were moved of the wind. Okay, so there's going to be a civil war. Now let's read what it says then. It says, "Then said the Lord unto Isaiah, Go forth to meet Ahaz, thou and Shir-Jashareb, thy son, at the end of the conduit of the upper pool of the highway of the fuller's field, and say unto him, Take heed, and be quiet, fear not, neither be faint-hearted, for the two tails of this smoking firebrand and their fierce anger, Rezin with Syria and the son of Remaliah, because Syria and Ephraim the son of Remaliah have taken evil counsel against thee, saying, Let us go up against Judah, and let us vex it, and let us make a breach therein for us, and set a king in the midst of it, even the son of Tabeel. Thus saith the Lord, it shall not stand, neither shall it come to pass." So the Lord just said, don't worry about it. I've got this covered. Now, in verse 8 is where we want to pay our attention. It says, "For the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin, and within 65 years Ephraim shall be broken and not be a people." So God just said, within 65 years, within 65 years, Ephraim will no longer be a people.
From what time?
Okay, good question, thank you. If you have, this Bible doesn't have it, but if you have you can check through history, but also if you get a Bible that has Ussher's chronology in it, it will give you the dates for each chapter in the Bible, because they've dated it out. And the date for chapter 7 is 742 BC. So, excellent. So that's our starting date. Now God just said, from this day, within 65 years, Ephraim is not going to be a people. In other words, God's going to destroy Israel forever. So then there's only going to be left Judah and Benjamin. And when we look back at the days of Jesus, and and they had the Pharisees, and they're in Jerusalem, and they crucified Christ, who was living in Jerusalem?
Judah.
The Jews. We call them the Jews, right?
The word
And we
Judah
said that,
comes from Judah.
right, and we said that the Jews killed Christ, or that's the history. Okay, that means that we're not counting these people. These people are no longer God's people.
What is 65? What is 742 minus 65?
Well, hold on, we'll get there. So, I also want to show you who Israel is. In the parable of, well, it's not a parable, but when Jesus goes to the woman at the well, the story of the woman at the well, she's sitting there, and one thing it said here. Let me just read this real quick. It says, for the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin. Okay, the next verse 9, it says, the head of Ephraim is Samaria. So Ephraim it says the head of Ephraim is Samaria.
The head of a nation is the capital city.
So now the Samaritans came and they pretty much took over Israel. They took them in and blended them. They were no longer their own people. They weren't considered like children of Jacob anymore. They were called Samaritans. And so when Jesus goes to the woman at the well, and she says, how is it that you, a Jew, ask me, a Samaritan, to fetch you water? Don't you know it's unlawful for a Jew to speak to a Samaritan? And that goes on. So we know that she was a Samaritan, and she's talking to Jesus, who was a Jew, and they're saying it's unlawful. But how do we know that the Samaritans are Ephraim? Because she says, our father Jacob dug that well. Well, Jacob's the father of the Jews. The father is Jacob of all the tribes, so we know that she's actually an Israelite. So when Jesus tells this parable about the Good Samaritan, and he says, who is my brother's keeper? And then he tells the story of the Good Samaritan. A lot of Christians believe that it's just trying to say, oh, it's other people. It's your neighbor. It's everyone else. That, the rabbi walked away and says, oh, I'm not going to help him. And the Levite says, oh, I'm too busy, I got to go. And it's like some stranger, but it's not a stranger. It's a Samaritan, and the Samaritan is actually their brother. So when they're asking who is my brother, Jesus is telling them, this is your brother. He's not talking about just anybody. It really was his brother. But anyways, a lot of people never make that connection, so I just added that in. Okay, so from 742 BC, it says within 65 years. So what does within mean? Does that mean the full length?
No, it doesn't have to be.
So we have this time period here. Let's say this is that, and it's within. So somewhere in here, we'll just put a line here. That's when, somewhere within this time period, these are not going to be a people. Okay, in 723. So here's 742. In 723 is when Israel was taken captive and destroyed by King Hoshea. Was it Hoshea?
King Hoshea was taken captive? Yeah.
Oh, King Hoshea was taken captive. Who was the king of the Samaritans, or the Syrians? Do you remember?
Manasseh?
Elimelech or something like that? Or
Abimelech?
I don't know. But anyway, so Israel was destroyed by the Samaritans in 723 BC.
And that's verifiable by history, right?
Yes.
Usher's chronology.
Now,
Ushers.
if you take now we have 2 kingdoms here, right? And God said within this time that the Israel, this one was going to have a full cup. But Judah is also wicked, aren't they? Aren't they doing wickedness too? So Judah's got its cup, and maybe its cup was a little bit later, but it filled up too, and it filled up. So if let me do this. Let's find out what this number is. Do you know what a score is?
20.
20. Okay, so 3 scores how much?
60.
60. So we have 60 plus 5, so we have 65 years. If you take 65 years from 742, it comes out to 677, and that's when Judah went into captivity.
Okay.
So watch this. So this chapter is telling us when both of the tribes began their 25-20.
It was King Shalmaneser.
Is that in Isaiah 7?
Isaiah 7. Now watch this. So we've been told this much by God.
First within, and then the actual.
Well, then we go to the end of the full three. Why? God would have just said this far, but he said 65 total because he's actually telling us both dates. He's telling us within this time Israel will be, but then the other one was going to be at the end of it. It doesn't say explicitly in the languages we're reading it. Go ahead.
The actual chapter that fulfills 723 was 2 Kings 18. If you want to read that, it talks about scattering into the cities, and then because they transgressed the covenant of the law of Moses, why 723? They were
Okay,
taken
well
captive.
let's just make that as a note. And in
2 Kings 18.
2 Kings 18 is the story of this battle where Israel is taken captive and they're no longer a people. Now, as we're still in Isaiah chapter 7, and we get past verse 9, what we just read, now listen to what the Lord says. He says, more of the Lord will say unto Ahaz, saying, ask thee a sign of the Lord, and ask it either in the depth or the height above. But Ahaz says, I will not ask, neither will I tempt the Lord. And he says, hear ye now, O house of David. Is it a small thing for you to weary me? But will you weary my God also? Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and call his name Emmanuel. So right now, God just told us that there's going to be this civil war attempt. He said, it's not going to happen, don't worry about it. And he says that these are no longer going to be a people within 65 years, and now I'm going to give you a sign. And what's the sign? The sign is Jesus Christ. She says a woman is going to give birth to a child, and his name is going to be Emmanuel. So God is vindicating this truth right here by the birth of Jesus Christ. Now watch out what else it says here as we go on. Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and his name shall be Emmanuel. Butter and honey shall he eat, that he may know to refuse evil and choose good. For the child shall know to refuse evil and choose the good, and the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both her kings. Did you hear that? So right here it just said, and the land shall be forsaken of both her kings. Both the king of Judah and the king of Israel. So right here we know that this chapter is talking about the destruction of both kingdoms.
That's Isaiah 7.
Isaiah 7, and then right here in verse 16 it says, before the child shall know to refuse evil and choose the good. In other words, before the child grows up, before he's born, the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both her kings. In other words, no more kings of Israel, no more kings of Egypt. Or not Egypt, I mean kings of Judah.
And that happened because Rome was ruling,
I've never
correct?
seen that verse.
No, right now, we're way back in history before Babylon came.
This is BC, before
I
Rome.
thought when Jesus was born.
No, this is giving a prophecy
Oh.
of Jesus being born in the future.
That'll be
But
the
that
sign.
but that sign right there is to vindicate what he's just said already in the scripture. So God gave us the starting point for the destruction of Israel, and so Israel goes this way, 2,520 years for its punishment, because God says, I'll punish you 7 times, right? And then Judah starts here, and it goes for 2,520. Okay, so this one here, Israel, goes to 1798, is 2,520 years, when the Pope was taken captive. And so right down the middle of it is 538. And you have 1,260 years of Babylon, or Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome. And then you have pagan Rome for 1,260 years. 1,260 years of pagan, 1,200 years of papal. And so this is the first 2520 that ends in 1798. No, 1798. And then this one goes to 1844. Now, when we had this list up here before of the things that God was going to do, are you just holding your hand up?
Oh.
Okay, all right, okay, fine. So when we had this list up here before of what was going to happen, one of the things that was going to happen was that it said, I'm going to scatter the people, remember?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for how long is he going to scatter them though?
7 times.
Yeah, God says, I will scatter you and I'll do all these things 7 times. So when the 7 times is over, God's going to gather his people. Well, it ends. Well, this is no longer a people, right? Because God says Israel is no longer a people. They're Samaritans. So this is really God's people right here. So when is God going to gather his people? He's going to gather them in 1844. Now, does that mean that all the Jews are going to return back to Palestine in 1844 and we're going to have a great new kingdom? What happened in 1844 that signifies God gathering his people?
Jesus going into the most holy.
Miller started the Advent movement, and God began to gather people over the whole world, and he went to every mission field in the world telling people that Christ was going to come and that to gather his people together. And then they found out that it was only going to be him going to the most holy place in the beginning of the judgment, but God had gathered the people, and the people had made their decision for Christ.
And entered into covenant with them in 1844.
Right, and now, so when we look at 1844, there was a covenant.
Was that where with 50 people only? Or not?
There was, well, here's how that worked. There was like thousands and thousands of people who were coming up to 1844, and they were following the message. Then these charts were made. As soon as these charts were made, then the churches said, "Oh, that's a little too exact. And if you don't come, if Jesus doesn't come on that exact day, that's going to be real embarrassing, right? So we're not going to partake of this." So all the churches closed their doors. Now, just like this cup being like a last chance, last ditch effort, God's going, okay, this is my message going to the world. I am gathering my people, and you just shut the door on me. And that's when God declares the second angel's message. The second angel's message is Babylon is fallen, leave her my people. Any church that closed their door to this message was to now be considered Babylon, and the people were to leave it and join with the Millerites and the Adventists. Now, when we got to, there was a couple, they made a couple of predictions that were wrong, and that caused them to doubt some more. And so the thousands went down to like 300 and like went down to, and then we got to 1844, there was only 50 people brave enough to hold on to Christ.
Through the great
faith.
disappointment.
Right. So when the next day when Jesus didn't come, they all left. Except for 50. Now, from that 50, it started to grow, but now God had his core 50. You know, you've heard the story of like the soldiers come up to a Christian camp and they say, if anyone who believes in Jesus or doesn't want to believe in Jesus or turn their back on him, they can leave now. And then the people leave, and they goes, "Oh, okay, now I got the ones that I can trust because if you're willing to die for them, then I know that I can talk to you." So that's kind of like what God did. He said, "You know, I got to know of all the people that are following me who are really on my side, and the 50 were the only ones who were willing to stand through it, because they had studied. They didn't just listen to me and someone else say, "Oh, watch out for this date in 1844, or watch out for this date 742," or instead of me telling you about it, they went, I read it in the Bible. It said within 65 years that they'd be no longer people. And I know when they were destroyed, and I know the battle. It was in 2 Kings 18. I know all this history is fact, so there's no way that we were wrong. I don't know why Jesus didn't come, but we had this stuff right. We had it. We studied. We showed ourselves the proof. There's no way you can make a mistake on this when you do the study. So anyways, so this is how we found at the beginning. It's because God said that he was going to destroy them and all that. But in Isaiah, he says, I'm going to, the effort's going to be no more. And then it tells you the date of when Judah was going to be scattered as well. Now, when we were looking at this at first, we read Leviticus 26.
How do you tie in the 2300 in there?
The 23, okay, I'll go ahead and answer that. Can you erase that for me, please? I'll give you the answer. So the 2300 days is with, when did we get the 2300 day prophecy? Yeah.
Daniel 14.
While we were in Babylon, and Daniel was in Babylon receiving
Oh, yeah.
visions, right? So he saw Nebuchadnezzar's vision, and he saw Daniel 2. But when you're talking about the 2300, we're talking about Daniel 8. So Daniel's in Babylon, or actually he's probably in Medo-Persia at this time, by Daniel 8.
No, that was
Because Belteshazzar is taken out in chapter 5 or 4. Or is
Verse
it,
1 says he's in Babylon.
did it say he's in Babylon? Okay. So anyways, so Daniel sees the vision of the 2300 days. And can you read me verse 13?
Yeah.
So this is 8:13. 8:14 is 2300 days. We're going to read the verse ahead
So
of it.
Daniel doesn't talk about 25 to 20, right?
Yes, he does. But you have to we'll go through that. We'll do
Almost
that
every
next. Maybe we'll do
chapter.
that next. Well, I'm going to take you through Leviticus and the furniture first.
13. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall be the vision concerning the...
How long? How long? Okay, how long? Keep going.
Shall be the vision concerning the daily and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot. And he said unto me, Unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed.
Okay, I have the daily and the transgression, but I want the sanctuary and the host to be trampled underfoot.
Yep, both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot. And unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed.
Okay, so both the sanctuary and the host are going to be trodden underfoot. Okay, so do you know what the sanctuary is? What is it?
Where God lives.
It's the temple of
Heaven.
God or the house of God? Yeah. And what are the hosts? What's the host?
The angels.
The host, well, the reason why we can call angels hosts if we're talking about the host of heaven. But when we're talking about judgments of God on the people of Israel, we're talking about the temple and the people. The host is the armies or the host of the people. So Daniel's asking one question. He says, how long will this be trodden underfoot? And how long will this be trodden underfoot? Okay, so Daniel is in Babylon, right? Daniel's in Babylon, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so is Daniel going to be trodden in the future, or has he already been trodden on? Is he already a slave in Babylon, or is he in Jerusalem enjoying himself? No, so he's already been trodden on, right? He got trodden when? When they took over the city. And when did they take over the city? In 677, after the 65 years. Remember, 65
Really?
years?
That's when they took Daniel?
Well, no, they didn't actually take Daniel right then. They took Manasseh, king of,
Right.
he was the
Oh,
king.
right,
But then
first.
he
And
repented.
after they
He
took
repented, and God gave him a little more time.
Ah, right.
But the time period had already started.
Daniel. Right.
The clock had already begun. So then Daniel goes in, but still Manasseh was his people, and the point is God, how much longer are you going to punish us? That's the question.
So was Daniel living
how
in
long?
Jerusalem?
How long are we going to be punished, trod underfoot? How long are other nations going to treat us badly?
So was Daniel living in Jerusalem when Manasseh was king?
Yeah, he didn't. But he went in the second wave when the other kings were destroyed. Because after King Manasseh came Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin, and
Do you know how many years?
70.
well,
It was
is it?
607 that he was taken captive. Daniel was.
Was it?
Mhm.
Okay, so
'Cause
70
he was
years.
young, right?
And then it'd be another
He was
70
young.
years because they were taken into
Yeah,
Babylon for
he
70
was
years
there.
and then released by to the Medo-Persians.
Yeah.
Okay, so Daniel, he went in to captivity in 677.
No,
Well,
607.
Well, 607. But Manasseh,
the people of God
the
became
people of
trodden
the
underfoot.
host,
Yeah.
the host, which Daniel was a part of, he didn't go to the first round. Manasseh was in the first round, but it started. The hosts were started to be trodden underfoot in
There
677.
you go.
So then, 2,520 years later is 1844. And so the answer to the question is, the hosts are going to be released then. But what about the sanctuary? Well, the sanctuary is going to be cleansed in 1844 also. So God's answering these two questions. But so it does. So he says about the sanctuary. He says, and in the next verse it says, "And unto 2,300 days shall the sanctuary be cleansed." So whenever the prophecy starts, we go 2,320 days, 2,300 days, and it will end in 1844. It didn't say when did the sanctuary get destroyed. It says how long till it gets fixed, how long till it gets cleansed. So it's already been defiled. It's already been destroyed by the king of Babylon. But so here's Daniel. Now look at it this way. Daniel's sitting in Babylon. Jerusalem is in ruins. The temple is in ruins. He's sitting in Babylon. He's going like, Lord, I know you're here to punish us, but I was just wondering, how long? How long do we have to stay here? And he says, your punishment is going to be, well, I'll tell you this much about it. In 2,300 days, I'm going to restore the sanctuary, or I'm going to cleanse the sanctuary.
And did you catch how the question itself said, how long shall be the vision, well, both the sanctuary and the host will be trodden underfoot? And the answer was the sanctuary, unto 2,000 days, the sanctuary will be cleansed. But it doesn't answer about the host.
But it does, because you just said it. When he asked the question, what about both of these?
When I say it, I mean the 2,300 days doesn't answer about the host.
It does.
Okay.
It does. Because the question was one question. It wasn't two questions. The one question was, how long between the sanctuary and the host? And the answer is, the sanctuary will be done in 2,300 days. That's the answer for both of these questions. When the sanctuary is cleansed in 2,300 days, then the sanctuary and the host will not be trodden underfoot. Because that was the question, that was the answer.
So how is
So he answered them both, but he only had to tell you about one because they're both going to be done on the same day. Right?
Okay,
You
so
got that?
I understand you.
Okay.
how is it cleansed in 1844, and how is the host not trodden
Okay,
underfoot
okay.
in 1844?
Okay, here we go. So, when God says that He's going to scatter you, you're under like exile. You're not being collected. You're not being
Also
blessed.
gathers.
So when He begins to gather, then you don't actually have to have the boot on your neck to be trod underfoot. You can just be trod underfoot because your parents got kicked out of a land and you're living in a dusty desert because you're still under the punishment. You're still under the curse. So when God's ready to lift that curse, it doesn't mean at that very moment there was anyone stepping on your neck, but the effects of all this trotting down is now going to be removed, and God's now going to gather us together.
Okay, so how does the sanctuary get cleansed?
Okay.
And Jesus goes into the...
So the Day of Atonement was every year. They had the Day of Atonement, and the high priest would go in once a year, right, with the blood of a sacrifice, and say, but that one sacrifice actually represented all the sacrifices for the entire year.
Right, right.
And when he went in, after what would happen is, after he went into the holy place, in fact, we're going to do sanctuary now. So, because this is really important, the sanctuary is in everything. So, I want the showbread in the north, so, then correct. Sometimes I draw this upside down, so making sure we're doing it right this time.
You're doing it well.
Do you have any questions? So these are my covering cherubs. They're not that good. Okay, so, and I need the outer court. I didn't draw this right. All right, here's what we'll do. We'll go like this, and then I'll draw another curtain. That's not going to leave much room for what I want to do, though. So here's the outer curtain, and then there's the burnt offering, which is like the burnt offering, and then there's the laver with the water in it. Okay, out in the outer court. So anyways, so the high priest puts on the high priestly garments, and he walks in here and with blood after the sacrifice, and comes up here and sprinkles on the curtain 7 times. Now, we're talking about the 7 times of the 2520. 7 times 2520, it's all the same thing. It all represents the same thing.
Okay.
Everything ends and begins in Christ. When you came here and you sprinkled a little blood on the four horns of the altar, and then you took and you sprinkled 7 times on the curtain. Okay, so man, there's so many ways to go, but we're just going to do some math right now. Can you take me to number 784, please? Numbers chapter 7, or yeah, Numbers chapter 7 and verse 84. And if you can find me the spoons and stuff, no, not that one. I need the curtain.
I don't know about the curtain.
Look up 100 cubits.
Okay.
And as soon as I do this first one, before we move on, I think we'll go through Daniel really quick.
84, right?
Yeah, go ahead and read 84.
This was the dedication of the altar in the day when it was anointed by the princes of Israel. 12 cherubs and silver.
Chargers is a type of dish.
12 silver bowls, 12 spoons of gold.
Okay, so I'm just making some crude pictures. I don't know if what they were exactly, but I'm just going to do like a pitcher, a bowl, and a spoon. Okay, so there's 12 of each of these, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now read the next verse.
Each charber of silver weighed at 130 shekels. Each bowl 70. All the silver vessels weighed 2,400 shekels.
So we could do the math. We could go 12 times 70 and 12 times 130 and add it together, but it gives us the answer. It says 2,400 shekels.
For all the silver ones.
For all the silver. Okay, now go ahead and read.
1,000 shekels after the shekels of the sanctuary.
No, hold on, just right there. What you just said, after the shekel of the sanctuary. It's very important that we're using the measurements of the sanctuary because God doesn't like an unjust weight. He doesn't want your pound to actually be 3/4 of a pound. So he says, according to the sanctuary weight, this is the way we're going to measure, so it's perfect weights. And God, it's important to God about that.
The gold spoons were 12, full of incense, weighed 10 shekels apiece. After the shekels of the sanctuary,
Oh, go ahead.
all the gold of the spoons was 120 shekels.
Right, so 10 times 12 is 120. So 120, and you have 2,520 shekels in weight.
Wow.
That's how much the vessels that were used in the sanctuary by the priest weighed.
It's amazing.
Okay, well, and there's a 7 times sprinkling, so you got 7 times here, you got 7 times there. Now let's look at. I'm going to switch back to Daniel for a second. In Daniel chapter 1, what is Daniel chapter 1 about?
The captivity
Yeah.
of Daniel.
Activity.
And
Yeah, go to Daniel chapter 1. So Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they all get taken to Babylon. But they're not the only thing taken to Babylon. There's something taken with them.
What's the sanctuary?
All the vessels and the things of the sanctuary. Okay, so in Daniel 1, is there a 25:20 in the first chapter of Daniel? Well, you just said that all the sanctuary stuff was taken. Guess what? All the sanctuary stuff weighed 25:20. So Daniel chapter 1 has a 25:20 in it.
right at the scattering of Daniel.
Now in chapter 2, is there a 25:20?
That's the vision.
Well, let's look at it.
Yeah.
Well, remember when we were looking at Israel, Israel's distance, and we had from 723 to 1798, and in the middle was 538. So we had 1,260 years of paganism, followed by 1,260 years of papalism. Okay, so who's this? In the statue, We have the head of gold, arms and chest of silver, legs of brass, feet of iron. Is that all the pagan nations
Yes.
that was attacking or was ruling over Israel for 1,260 years? And then it gave over to the Pope, because the Pope, the dragon, gave a seat, power, and great authority unto the beast, and that was the papacy. So we have Babylon,
You have
Medo-Persia, Greece.
Papal Rome, right?
Right, so pagan Rome turned into papal Rome.
I'm sorry, pagan Rome, right? The legs are
Right.
pagan.
So we have the head, the chest, the arms, and the legs, and then we have the feet
and
and
then papal.
papal Rome, and that went on for 2,520 years until God took out the papacy in 1798, didn't he? So now we're no longer under these two things. So Daniel chapter 2 tells us about all the metals and the feet that were of miry clay and iron, and the stone comes and destroys them all. So when those are all removed,
So you're
in
saying
1798, there's no papacy.
you're saying the feet is papal Rome?
Yeah, the iron mixed with clay.
Iron. Oh, yeah.
Right, the divisions of Rome. So now,
Yeah, but where's 1798 and the feet? I mean, like,
well, the papacy was taken away by General Berthier, by Napoleon's general Berthier in 1798.
I mean,
And
where
received
is
a
it
deadly
on
wound.
the legs and the feet?
Well, if the feet are clay and iron is the papacy, then the feet are the papacy. So the papacy was taken out of the way in 1798.
So we're at the toes.
We're at the toes.
Okay.
Yeah. Right
There's-
there goes until the second coming of Christ.
There's a little bit more time actually than what's shown exactly in that picture, or chapter 2, because it's a very compact picture. We go to 7, we learn more about the little horn and get more details.
Right.
But in chapter 2, it's very basic. But basically, we get down to the feet. The feet is the papacy, which is 1,260 years, and all the rest of it is another 1,260 years. So Daniel 2, the image, is also about 2,520 years.
Wow, I never saw it before.
Okay, and Daniel 3. What's in Daniel 3?
I don't remember.
Daniel 3 is the fiery furnace.
Wow.
Do you remember the three words that were in the fiery furnace? And how hot was that furnace made?
7 times.
7 times hotter. So we have 7 times. So we have, again, 2,520.
Wow.
Okay, chapter 4. What's chapter 4?
Nebuchadnezzar,
Eat
he
grass.
becomes.
Nebuchadnezzar
7
eats grass
times.
for how long?
7 years.
2,520 days. Which makes seven literal years. So 2,520 years of eating grass. Okay, chapter 5. What happened in chapter 5? Is chapter 5 Belshazzar or is chapter 5
Belshazzar.
Daniel?
Yeah.
Or the
Mene,
lions?
Mene, Tekel, Upharsin.
So,
Well, it's
okay, now we're going to get really crazy because we got to go into a whole lot of stuff, so you got to keep your mind going. Okay, back to the sanctuary. The reason why Christ had to, okay, let's go, the story of Naaman. You know what the story of Naaman is? What's the story of Naaman?
had leprosy and he was washed 7 times.
7 times, huh? Oh, amazing about that, huh? It's amazing what you find in the Bible. So, but it's not in there, of course, that's what they say. So, let's ask a question. What does leprosy represent?
Sin.
Sin. Is there any one of us who don't have sin? So guess what? We are all under the curse. The 2520 is not a curse against Israel. It's a curse against anybody who makes a covenant with God and breaks it. Whenever you make a covenant with God, you're saying, I will be you, I will obey your commandments, and I'll do all these things. And God says, then I'll give you the rain, I'll keep the beast out of your field, I'll give you all these things. But if you won't keep my commandments, you won't do everything I told you, I will punish you 7 times. So every single one of us have broken God's law. Every one of us have broken his covenant. We've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So we all have, the wages of sin is death, right? Well, death is part of that curse. So we are all under the curse, and the only way we can get cleansed is how? To wash in the river Jordan 7 times.
Even Jesus said,
See, the story of Naaman is a story for all of us. It's not about Naaman and his pride that he wouldn't go wash 7 times. It's that in order to remove leprosy from you, You have to go and wash 7 times.
Because he wasn't a Jew either.
But it doesn't. You're right, and that means that it applies to us too. So if we want to remove leprosy, which we all have sin, and sin and leprosy are the same thing. We have to wash 7 times. So why do you think that the blood was sprinkled 7 times on the curtain? Because if it wasn't sprinkled 7 times, it wasn't good enough. If the priest, if Naaman had dunked only 6 times, would he still have leprosy?
I'm sorry, say that again.
If Naaman had dunked only 6 times in the River
no.
Jordan, would
Yeah.
he still have leprosy? Well, guess what? If the priest had only sprinkled it 6 times, we'd still be bad too. So the 7 times is necessary. Now, well, okay. So we're gonna go back to chapter 5, but what was it that I need? I just had it in my head and I lost it. Oh, okay. Let's go to Daniel chapter 9. Now we're going to 9/11. Now 9/11 is a very significant date in history. That's when the towers fell.
Yeah.
But 9/11 God also uses in the scriptures over and over and over as a representation of prophecy and even the towers falling.
As a number or what?
Yes, if you understand this, God, there's a place in the Bible, I forget which word it is, that you look at the marginal reading and it says that word is Palmoni, and the name Palmoni means the wonderful numberer, and it's about Christ. So Christ actually has a name. He has the name the Lamb. He has the King of Righteousness. He's got all these names. One of them is the Palmoni, which is the wonderful number. And that's why 2520 pops up all over the place, because God's got his numbers and everything.
Right.
All right. So read verse 11, 9/11.
Yea,
Really? 9/11?
Yes,
Yeah.
9/11.
Oh, wow.
yea, all Israel have transgressed thy law, even by departing, that they might not obey
The
obey
oath.
thy voice. Therefore the curse is poured upon us, and the oath that is written in the law of Moses is the serve of God, because we have sinned against him.
Okay, so in chapter 9, Daniel's praying. And he's, by the way,
He wants to explain.
the curse here, that's the 2520 curse. If you don't obey me, I'm going to... So right here, we're in chapter 9. So we could put Daniel 9, 2520 right here, because we just had the curses in here. So 9 has 2520 in it too, right? Because every chapter of Daniel says
So
2520 is in everything.
1 to 4, 9, it's in there, but not 5.
No, we're going to 5, but I'm backing up because I have a lot of information, because 5 is so packed. 5 is extremely packed, and it is like, it's amazing. And I'm going to open up 5 for you. So, it says that we were that we had broken the oath, and the curse was upon us that was in the book of Moses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what books are the books of Moses?
Genesis.
The first 5
Exodus,
books,
yeah.
right? So we have to find in the first 5 books a curse that Moses put on us. And guess what? Leviticus 26 is the curse if you break the covenant. Also, before all this happened, before we went to Babylon, God's merciful, and he took the little boy king, Josiah, and he found the book of the law in the thing. And you know what he said? He didn't say, "Oh, I love the Psalms. Oh, the great promises of the Lord." He says, "Oh, that we are under the curse, and I can see that we are under the curse that was in the book of the law." And basically, so Josiah is saying, I saw the 2520, and I recognized that we're in trouble. And then, so it was a little bit after Josiah that the next king, that Babylon comes down and takes them out to Babylon. Yeah. So Josiah, before the curse came, he read the book of the law, or he read all of Moses' writings, and he wasn't going like, "Oh, thank you for getting us out of Egypt." He says, we're under the curse. We have disobeyed God. I look around me and I know that what God said in his book and what we're doing now, we broke it. We're in trouble.
But it hadn't happened yet.
No, but he knew that they were breaking God's law and that the curse was going to be upon them. So he saw it. But of all the things he could have read, why did he do that? We read the book and be like, "Oh, there's no 25. There's no curse in the 5 books." Yes, there is. The whole book is about Adam breaking the law And now God's trying to return us back to the sanctuary. And what's the sanctuary made up of? It's made up of 2520, 7 times. There's more 2520s in here. I'm just showing you 2 right now. But if the altar, if the curtain is Christ's righteousness, right, and the doorway is like the red curtain is his body. We come to him, we come to Christ first, and the sacrifice is Christ, and the water of life is Christ, and the light of the world is Christ, and the bread of heaven is Christ, and our intercessor is Christ, and God is Christ. If everything is Christ, and these chargers all add 2520, that's Christ too. Everything in the sanctuary is Christ. And if everything in the sanctuary adds up to 2520, then it tells you that 2520 adds up to Christ. Make sense? So, and people say, well, how can you call him a number? Well, how can you call him a piece of bread? How can you call him how can you call him a lamb? How can you call him an altar of incense? How can you call him a burnt offering? Christ is all these things. He's a rock. He's a lamb. He's a lion. Christ is so many things. We don't limit Christ. We ask Christ, how much more is there for you to show us? Because we want to know all of you. We don't, because really when they reject 2520, they're actually rejecting Christ. Because this is a part of him. So, this word oath, which is basically the covenant, okay? Because they had an oath, but they broke it, so now the curse is there. And we read about it in Leviticus, right? And that's what 9:11 says. So this word oath, if you look it up in the Hebrew, it says it's like H1 or 7 something, 713, 712 will say. And what it'll say is, this is the female version of another word or something like that. And you go to that other word, and it'll be like H750, it's somewhere like in that. Anyways, this word here, now that we've gotten to the root word, because they always say it's a part of this word. Well, we find out what that word is. It's part of. This word says to seven oneself, as in an oath. So what does that mean? I'll give you an example like this. It's like this. So we're kids and I want you to do something and you don't trust me, so you're going like, swear to God, hope to die, stick a needle in your eye. And I go like, swear to God, hope to die, stick a needle in your eye. So if I break my promise, really I'm supposed to stick a needle in my eye, right? Okay, so this is what this oath is, but this oath means to seven oneself. So really the way the oath would go if we were doing an oath with God, but we're doing it our way, we'd go like, swear to God, hope to die, stick 7 needles in my eye. So when God makes an oath with you, his perfect number is 7. So you're like, I don't make single promises. You promise with me 7 times, and I will promise you 7 times back. And I will be your God. I will let the rain come and your crops will grow. You will plant your crops and others won't eat them. You will. You will live in your house. You will build houses and you will live in them, not your enemies. I will make your enemies flee, and 1 will chase 1,000, and 5 will chase 10,000. And he says this, and so the oath is a 7 times oath. And when we look up the Hebrew, so the language that is used here means what God meant it to mean, and it means to seven oneself. So when we made a covenant with God in Leviticus, if you obey my covenants, those things, I'll be your God, we said, we agree unto that 7 times. And he says, that's great. But if you break it, you will pay 7 times. I will curse you 7 times for breaking it. Because you're going to pay for every oath you made. And I only make 7 times oaths. So,
Pretty harsh.
yeah, but so now, and when we look at Naaman, he's got 7 times he has to dunk, right? Does that mean that none of the dunks counted, only the 7th one counted?
That's when he gets healed.
He gets healed on the 7th because it takes all 7. But none of them are more important than the other one. The last one wasn't more important than the first one. That means the first one did something, but it wasn't enough. Because see, the first one would have covered one of the oaths. And then he'd dunk again, and that would cover for another oath he broke. But he broke because he has leprosy or sin, which represents breaking a 7 times oath with God. I'll be your people, and he's... Anytime you sin or you break a covenant with God, when you don't sin, you're not breaking covenant with God. But all mankind, whether you're heathen or his people or whatever, when you sin, you're under the curse. And you sin. I mean, we all are busted for sin, right? Whether you're heathen or you're Christian. Doesn't matter. We all get busted for sin.
That's interesting that he was not a Jew.
Right.
Yet he was still used
So-
to show that.
And that's probably because God wanted to show us that not only God's people are worrying about sin, we all have to worry about sin. We all have to be cured. So,
Right.
Christ, now tell me this, how does sin get removed? Today,
Blood.
by the blood, right? Without the shedding of blood, there's no remission for sin. Okay, so you have to shed blood in order to pay for a fine. Okay, why is this curtain splashed 7 times? Because we have a 7 times curse, we have to bleed 7 times. Blood for the first, blood for the second, blood 7 times to remove our curse. 7 times he had to dunk because his dunking in the water was representation of the blood cleansing him from his sin, but it was the water cleansing him from sin in this case. Because only sin is covered by blood. Water doesn't do it. So the story of Naaman is just giving us an illustration, but it's blood that is what cures us. Okay, so did Christ bleed 7 times?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Both feet, both hands, the crown of thorns, the whips on his back, and the spear in his side.
And you know what?
7 times he bled for us.
7 times is 2 times in the back.
No,
Wait. And then side, head, 1. It was 2 holes, but his feet were together, so it
doesn't matter. He still bled from
It's
2
still
places.
7.
Right, but we're not counting how many times it happened. Or, I mean, he bled from 7 places. Anyway, so could have God said, look, if all of that, see, the Christian world believes that that Christ died once for all of us, and it's all good and it's all over with, and then there's no work for the priest to take the blood in the sanctuary, or anything after Christ is killed on the cross. They go, it's finished at the cross, because they don't understand the sanctuary. They don't. The Christian world, and the heathen world, nobody else but us really understands the sanctuary. So I'm losing my train of thought for just a second. Oh, okay. So he had to bleed 7 times. So Christ, if all he had to do was die for our sins, then why pull out his beard? Why let him be spit on? Why drag him through the courts all night? Wasn't God just say, look, you're going to kill my son, get it over with? He didn't. And Christ didn't object to anything. And he said, please let this cup pass from me. Whenever the cup, like when it gets full, you have to drink it. He's drinking the cup that we all filled. Because when you fill it, you have to drink it. So Christ is going, I'm now going to take the punishment of all those who have filled their cups, because you get punished at the filling. So now he's going to get punished, so he's going like, let this cup pass before me, and I don't want to drink it. And also when we read in the second angel's message, don't drink of the wine of her fornication, because really what you're doing is instead of because when you're drinking that cup, you're taking in all of her sins, and she's going to be destroyed by the fires of hell, because she's the beast power. So now back at 5. So yeah, let me go ahead and read this out of your Bible here. This is very interesting. I think it's verse 17 where I want to go to, but it says. On the interpretation. Oh, because he's doing. Oh, okay, yeah. I think it's 21. Okay, so Daniel is standing, or we saw the Mene Mene Tekel Upharsin on the wall, right? Oh, and by the way, man, there's so much. Mene Mene Tekel Upharsin is like, let's say in our language. We might say pound, but the English have a pound. See, our pound is a weight, their pound is money, right? So sometimes what means something in one language means something else in another. Well, in this time they had Chaldean, Aramaic, Babylonian, and Hebrew. So when you look at the words Mene Mene Tekel Upharsin, A mini in coin amount is 50. A tekel is the same as a shekel. And a upharsin is half of a mini, so that's 25. So you have 126 shekels. Now, I wish, where did Enoch go? Look at you guys sneaking off like a bunch of little scourers. Okay, I'm going to look up a word real quick in the Bible here so I can read it for you. And my battery's dead. Do you need to have an electronic device?
I'm Jose. Give me my phone.
Hey, Jose.
That's my phone.
We either need Enoch back here or we need her phone or something.
My phone.
Here, I got my phone.
You got a Bible on it you can
I
search?
need my phone. Please.
So, do you have a Bible on there that you can search?
You'll probably get one.
I tell you what,
I
just
do.
go on Google and put Gerah.
Okay.
Erah.
Gerah.
And hit that and it should come up on Wikipedia or something. Just gonna spin or we're gonna get some.
No, actually, my phone works good around here. Compared to other places, but I don't know why it's not loading.
I will get my phone.
Well, I'm recording. I don't want to wait too long. So, okay.
I have a Bible in it.
Okay, let's do this
Okay.
here. Try this one. Well, it's. No, I want the verse. How do I go back? Okay, now pick a different one, or let's try Wikipedia. It probably has more information. Ah, there's a mosquito going right by me.
That was a mosquito.
Something was. Yeah, I think it was.
It looks like a fruit fly.
I haven't seen any mosquitoes.
I know.
It's giving me the answer, but I don't want the answer. I want the verses.
Let me see.
You can look it up on Google.
See if you can find the verses. So
Just put the verse and it'll show up on Google.
So here we are, and it says, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin on the wall, right? And so then they call Daniel in, and he looks up there and he sees Mene, Tekel, Upharsin. Well, he knows the languages very well, and he's like 10 times wiser than all the other ones, right? And he sees this, and he goes, yeah, you're in trouble. So when he asks for the interpretation, this is part of the interpretation. He says, and he's talking about Nebuchadnezzar when he ate grass, right? And he says, Thou, O King, Most High God, gave Nebuchadnezzar, or, O Thou King, Most High God, the Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar thy father. So this is, Belshazzar was Nebuchadnezzar's son. He says, I gave thy father a kingdom and majesty and glory and honor. And for the majesty that he gave him, all people, nation, tongues, languages trembled and feared before him. Who he would slew, he slew, and whom he would kept alive, he kept alive. And who he set up, whom he would, he put down. But when his heart was lifted up and his mind hardened in pride, he was disposed from the kingly throne and took his glory, and they took his glory from him, and he was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the beast in his dwelling, and his dwelling was with the wild asses, and he fed him with grass and oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till he knew that the Most High God ruled in heaven, ruled in the kingdom of men, and that he appointed over him whoever it will. And thou, his son, O Belshazzar, hast not humbled thy heart, though thou knew all this.
He's referring to that.
Daniel's coming and going like, Mini mini tekel upharsin. That adds up to 25.20.
It's all about the curse.
So, did you find it?
I'm waiting for it to load.
Okay, well, I just have to say it. I'll just have to say it for the camera. There's about 4 places in the Bible where it talks about gerah, and it says the shekel of the sanctuary equals 20 gerahs. So a shekel's like, you know, a nickel, and we want to find out how much pennies are. So the gerah is the base number. So when you go 20 times 126, when you take the 126 shekels and transfer them to the shekel of the sanctuary, which is times 20, to the gerahs, you get 25.20. So what bill? What
was 20 again?
gerahs?
Which is
It's
smaller?
yeah, there's 20 gerahs in every shekel.
Oh,
So this added up to
okay.
126
Smaller.
shekels. Okay, here's a verse. It says, Exodus 30:13 is just one of them, and it says, "This such they shall give everyone that passeth among them that are numbered half a shekel after the shekel of the sanctuary." And then it has in quotes or brackets, "A shekel is 20 gerahs." And then in Leviticus 27 verse 25, "All thy estimation shall be according to the shekel of the sanctuary, 20 gerahs shall be the shekel." So every shekel is 20 gerahs. So you take the 126 shekels and you times it by 20 to find how many gerahs are, and there's 2,520 gerahs.
But why? Why do you do that? I mean, I know it comes out to 25.20, but why do you multiply the 126?
Because
I see.
Daniel knows the math. He's looking up here and he's going,
Okay.
"Oh, that's 126 shekels.
So it's
That adds up to
referring
25.20.
7
You know what? You know what, Belshazzar? You're sitting here drinking out of these cups. Let me ask you a question before we find out what this money really is, before we do all that math. Tell me, how much did those cups weigh? Didn't we just do the math here?
Oh,
That-
wanting.
So they're drinking out of 2,520 shekels of metal
I never heard that before.
to their gods.
Wow.
And Daniel comes in and he sees many take first. He looks at them. He sees the cups. He's going like, because he lived in Babylon. He lived in
He wasn't
Jerusalem.
at
He
the
knew,
feast,
but
yeah.
he knew what the holy temple instruments looked like, and he saw them drinking out of it. He saw them all drunk. He saw that on the wall, and he says, "Guess what, King? You aren't going to be giving me any gifts, because this day, I tell you tonight, your kingdom is taken from you. Many tekel upharsin. Your land has been divided between the Medes and the Persians." And then he tells it, but
He
then
knew from the dream that was the next country.
well, he didn't,
Right.
well,
Daniel knew by that time. That
well,
was the
anyways,
next
the
one.
Medes and the Persians were already trying to take Babylon,
Right.
but they weren't able to. And that's why they're having this big feast, thinking that, oh, they can't touch us, right? And right now, the Medes are diverting the river Euphrates
Yeah,
above.
exactly.
So, but while that's happening, they're having a drunken feast
So
with
he-
the
so
with
then-
the items of God's temple.
So then Daniel knows because of the message that now the time has come.
And you know what else it means? Listen, if 2520 represents Christ, then they were like drinking out of cups that represent Christ to their gods. They're basically like sacrificing Jesus to their gods. You know, and so God says, "Oh, well, let me explain." So then Daniel says, "Let me explain this to you. Do you know your dad? He was given all kinds of power by the Almighty God. Everything he did, he was able to do, until the day that he got pride in him and God made him walk on the ground. Remember that, when he walked on the ground for 2,520 years? And though you knew all this, you thought it was a good idea to go in and take God's holy instruments and drink to your gods with these? Tonight, your kingdom is taken from you." So how many 2520s do we have in just chapter 5? We have Nebuchadnezzar's eating, that because Belshazzar was told that your father ate grass, and then and we also had the mini tekel upharsin on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
They were drinking out of the cups that were 2520. So we've actually got and then if you add up the mini tekel upharsin, that's another 1220. So we've already got at least 4 times that the 2520 is in chapter 5. Chapter 6, I think, is the lion's den. I haven't really figured that one out because I haven't bothered with that much. But then we go into 7, and then we're in Daniel 7, which is the beast, the lion, the bear, and the leopard. Which, again, that's the same as Daniel 2. It's the same kingdoms. that we're under the curse for, or we're under the scattering for 2,520 years. And then 8 is the 2,300 days, which is part of the 25